Welcome to the GRE Prep Ask the Professor session brought to you by TrboTest. And as you may already know, I am your instructor, Professor Konstantine Onapolous. The first question brought to us today for Ask the Professor is a number is randomly chosen from a list of 10 consecutive positive integers. What is the probability that the number selected is greater than the average or arithmetic mean of all 10 integers? Now, of course, if you were taking our GRE program, you would know the answer just by reading this question. Immediately, you would know the answer to this question. But for our purposes today, I will work it all out. Take the data were ascertained. We have 10 consecutive positive integers, right? From that, we know that the numbers have to be in order, consecutive. They have to be positive. They can't be any negatives, obviously. And integers, whole numbers, not fractions, not decimals. They're also telling us that there's going to be a single random number selected from those 10. Okay? The question is, what is the probability that the number you select is greater than the average of all 10 integers? Right? To solve it, first thing we need to realize is that the mean or the arithmetic average of 10 consecutive numbers will equal the fifth and sixth number added together and divided by 2. Right? Whether you start with 1 through 10 or take larger numbers consecutively like 21 through 30, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that the average will be the fifth and sixth number in your grouping added together and divided by 2. Right? So if we keep that in mind, the first 5 numbers, the first through the fifth of those 5 integers, will be less than the mean or the average. And of course, the 6th through the 10th of those integers will be greater than the mean. Therefore, the answer is quite simple. It's C. Only half of those numbers are above. So the probability is 1 and 2. The next question brought to us is, Burger Town offers many options for customers to customize a burger. There are 3 types of meat and 7 condiments. The condiments are lettuce, tomato, pickle, onions, ketchup, mustard, and special sauce. A burger must include meat, but may include as many or as few condiments as the customer wants. How many different burgers are possible? So immediately, if we look at the answer choices they give us, of course, the first thing we notice is they are circles. And that tells us that only one answer is correct on the GRE. If they were squares, that tells us immediately that at least 2 of those questions are correct, and it could be more. So remember on the GRE, if you see a circle around an answer, there's only 1 correct for that question. If there's a square, at least 2 or more are correct. So let's look at the data that we also see in the answers. We also see that we have an 8 with an exclamation point. B has a 7 exclamation point. C has an 8 with an exclamation point. That is a dead giveaway to us that we're going to work numbers that have to be compared and figure out the overlapping sets. Okay? Let's do this and I'll show you what I mean. We know there's 3 types of meat. We know there's 7 condiments. We don't really care what the condiments are. The bottom line is that the customer can choose to accept the condiment and not accept the condiment. Those are really the choices. So how many different burgers are possible? Well, it's quite simple to solve. It's called fundamental counting principle. And when we see an exclamation point after a number, that should tell you it is a fundamental counting principle that we're dealing with. So the process is very simple. Okay, first thing we do is write down meat. Meat, 3 choices. Condiments. There's 7 choices of condiments, but keep in mind that the customer can choose yes or no, as far as yes, he wants it, or no, he doesn't. So that actually becomes 7 choices of condiment with 2 choices each. So mathematically, we write it out as 3, the choices of meat, times 2, 7 times. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 7 times. So ultimately, it equals 3 times 2 to the 7th power. All right. Again, 3 times 2 to the 7th power, the number of meat, the number of choices, and the number of condiments. So the answer, of course, is E, 3 times 2 to the 7th. All right, the next question says, at Lexington High School, each student studies at least one language, Spanish, French, or Latin, and no student studies all three languages. If 100 students study Spanish, 80 students study French, and 40 students study Latin, with 22 studying exactly two languages, how many students are there at Lexington High School? All right, it's a very simple question to answer, but it could be tricky. So you have to be careful because there is a catch answer here that will get you every time. So just watch your math. All right. First thing we do is ascertain the data given. All students study at least one language, okay? Spanish, French, or Latin. They can only study up to two languages. There's Spanish, 100 students, French, 80 students, Latin, 40 students, and two languages, 22 students, right? So the trap answer here is to add all these together. 100 plus 80 is 180 plus 40 is 220. We can go ahead and we can do that, or we can realize that there's not going to be that answer. And here's how it works. The question was total students at high school. All right. Remember, we're told that there's 100 students who are taking the Spanish. We're told there's 80 students taking French. We're told there's 40 students taking Latin. But remember, of those students, 22 are taking two or more. So those students don't count. They actually are a subtraction. So the answer is A, 198.